Good evening. We're here to celebrate the extraordinary contributions of frontline workers of all different faiths in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. I'm really excited about what we're going to be doing this evening, and I look forward to sharing this Zoom call with a number of the speakers and more importantly, the wider faith community. It's really important for us to remember that faith does help us to move forward, and it helps to inspire us. As the Archbishop of Canterbury said in his sermon at Easter, and I will quote him, "After so much suffering, so much heroism from key workers and the NHS," he said, "we cannot be content to go back to what was before as if all is normal. There needs to be a resurrection of our common life." And I feel it's very true that although the applause may fade, and it's wonderful to have seen those inspiring scenes of people coming out of their homes on the Thursday evenings to applaud those key workers, and that applaud will fade, but we must not forget the efforts of those on the front lines in the battle against COVID. Our recognition, our appreciation of their heroic actions must become the new normal. And faith has always embedded in across numerous faith communities the importance of gratitude. And this evening we will hear from people from different faith communities, all part of Faiths United, who have suggested, who have nominated people from health, from education, from across different areas of support for society that have done incredible things. And I look forward to hearing from those who are going to introduce them from the different faiths, and to those who have been on the front lines delivering so much good. And may I start by reinforcing that message of thanks by doing so myself. Thank you. May I first now ask Carrie Assam from the Muslim community, who has nominated Dr. Ayesha Sabir, who's been working in health, to speak.
Before Dr. Ayesha starts, I just wanted to say that Dr. Ayesha Sabir is one of the members in our congregation, in our mosque, and herself as well as her family made tremendous sacrifices during this. And I'll let Dr. Ayesha Sabir now to say a few words.
Okay, thank you very much, Kariasin, for that introduction, and hello all. So as you know, my name's Ayesha Sabir. I'm currently a junior doctor working in the NHS. So my day job would usually be on an ENT ward, treating everything from nosebleeds to throat cancers. But for the past 3 months or so, I have been redeployed to a COVID ward at a large teaching hospital in West Yorkshire. Working on the front line has been one of my biggest challenges to date. Managing COVID patients in amongst all the uncertainties from PPE shortages and the ever-changing government guidelines has been stressful during this time. Alongside that, I faced personal difficulties. This includes fasting during Ramadan whilst wearing full PPE, which added sort of a new challenge to the month, and also concerns about my family's safety and the risk of spreading COVID to them. But at the same time, I do feel very privileged to have contributed during this pandemic and care for patients during this unique time. As a doctor, we see death a lot. Patients die in the middle of the night, first thing in the morning, from chronic illnesses such as cancer to sudden events such as heart attacks in the A&E department. But one thing that I found really difficult to deal with during this crisis is how people are dying alone with their family members, often at home, and unable to say goodbye to them. There's no social code for death during a pandemic, and I do feel like COVID has robbed them of a dignified death during this time. Saying that, there have been lots of positives which have come from coronavirus, and I really hope the reality is dawning on the general public in regards to the contribution immigrants and Black and minority ethnic NHS staff members have contributed towards the pandemic, with so many of them even sacrificing their lives to help others. Going forward from this, I really do hope that the relentless compassion that NHS shows in times of difficulty is recognised and it receives the funding and support that it desperately needs and deserves. Thank you very much.
Inspirational words from you both, Dr. Ayesha. Congratulations, and Karyasam, thank you so much. May I turn now to Padideh Sabeti? She's from the Baha'i community. She's nominated Debbie Tilley, who's in education. May I turn over to Padideh, please?
Thank you, Maurice, and thank you to Faith United for organizing one inspiring meeting after another. I'm delighted to be here to learn from the experience of these wonderful workers that have contributed so much in this period. So Debbie Tebby has been a teacher for the past 30 years in primary education, and have been a deputy head at Senko for much of her career. She's given me a modest resume, but I can tell you that she's respected in the Baha'i community for her contribution and admired for her contribution to field of education, religious education, and getting grants to do fantastic research. So her current work is that she's going to talk about is related to vulnerable teenagers on a rural care farm in Dorset, which I would imagine where she is calling from, and providing English, maths, functional skills tuition, and accompanying them with animal-assisted therapy. And that really sums up Debbie, because she thinks outside the box and does unusual things. So I look forward to hearing from Debbie's experience.
Thank you, Padideh. Gosh, I feel humbled. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm working on a care farm. We're called Future Roots, and there's a huge clue there in the name. It's not residential, so we have young people come to us during the day for either a morning or an afternoon. Some of them for a whole day at a time, and our normal work is in providing, have got there are all kinds of diagnoses of anxiety, of ADHD, ASD, all of the sort of kind of diagnoses that often go with difficulty in mainstream school. And a lot of our children have been suspended, often expelled from schools, from one school after another, and they come to us, like I say, for a safe base. The whole ethos of the care farm really, it echoes to me as a Baha'i. It's not a Baha'i run place.
Sorry, Debbie, your broadband is packing up. Would you mind turning off your video so you'll stream faster? Could you just turn off your video?
It echoes the whole ethos. Everybody has something. Everybody has a team of have really found it very, very challenging being in lockdown. And as I'm guessing lots of you are medical people, you will know that even beyond the illness itself causes an awful lot of challenge. We've tried to be innovative over the last few weeks as things have progressed. We've offered phone calls for those children who can't attend their normal sessions to give them support. We've organized food parcels for children and young people who are really struggling. We've even organized some of our lessons online. So I'm offering Zoom maths and English now for some of my students who are not able to come to the farm. Our impact, really, we've had lots of positive feedback from parents who've said it's been a lifeline for their children, not because they've had to deal with the COVID itself, but because they've had to deal with the impact, the social impact, and that's really been my work.
Thank you very much for that. That's great work. And thank you, Padideh, as well, for making that introduction and nomination. I will just ask as a technical thing, I'm sure a lot of you have been becoming used to this Zoom call technology and webinars. If we are struggling with the broadband, I might just watch me and I'll put my hand up. And just please, if you'd cut your video, it just means that your broadband will not be as taxed and we will get a clearer, at least we'll be able to hear you even if we can't see you. So we'll just do that. But let's hope that we will have a smooth transmission speed throughout. So now, if I may, turn to Father Nefon Tsimalis. He's a Christian Greek Orthodox, and he's going to introduce Stefanie Hook Way to talk about her work in health. Father Nefon.
It's a pleasure to be here today, and an extra pleasure to briefly introduce Stefanie Hook Way, who is a very dynamic and active member of our community on all levels. She currently works at the Chelsea and Westminster Hospital, originally working in the HIV and oncology ward, and when the pandemic began, she moved to the Corona ward, and currently I believe she's returned back to her previous ward. In any case, as an archdiocese, we're very proud to have a young lady taking such courageous and bold steps and demonstrating such solidarity and love for neighbor and the other. And she is probably our youngest presenter tonight, and we are especially overjoyed to see her courage and love, and to inform all of you that she's also expecting a baby in the next few months. So we thank her effort ×2. So please encourage us, Stefanie, with your good work and the things you would like to share with us today.
Thank you, Father. Thank you all for having me. Yeah, as Father said, so I'm a staff nurse and I was based on the HIV oncology hematology ward. And we actually, the first 2 COVID patients in the hospital, we had them on our ward because we had the only available negative pressure side rooms, which was a bit daunting because no one really knew what we were supposed to be doing, especially with PPE. There were signs everywhere, how to put it on, to take it off, but it was this scary new thing that no one really knew much about. And then we all got moved to a COVID ward, which was scary. We were worried for our normal HIV oncology patients because they're quite vulnerable, what would happen to them. But then as the hospital kind of figured out how to cope with the pandemic, we got our patients back. And when I found out I was pregnant, they moved me back to the HIV oncology ward. But I think the biggest struggle we had was with PPE. There was such a shortage that was so obvious. There was always staff coming from other wards to borrow, but we wouldn't have enough ourselves. Some people were having to hide masks or gowns in cupboards just to have enough for themselves. And then the guidelines were always changing. They said to throw away everything after 1 use, so your mask, your visor, your gown. And then they were saying you can use it for a few patients, just clean it in between. Then they were saying, no, you can use it for your whole shift, or you can use it for a couple shifts. And we were just thinking, is this what's best practice, or is it just because we don't have enough stock? But thankfully at the hospital, we all managed to cope well with it. We didn't have any fatalities in our hospital with healthcare staff, but our sister hospital, West Middlesex, did unfortunately have a few healthcare professionals who passed away, sadly. So it was quite scary, but everyone pulled together really amazingly, all the staff helping each other out. And my ward were amazing, especially finding out, when I found out I was pregnant, because I was quite worried because I had looked after COVID patients, and then coming home where I live with my parents. As Dr. Ayesha said, you're worried for your own family if you're going to pass it on to anyone. But no, thank God we've managed to get through it. There's still a few cases in the hospital and a few cases in intensive care, but I think we've learned how to manage it from the previous spike. So hopefully just onwards and upwards, and the best for our patients. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stefanie. And if I am repeating thank you so many times, I'm not apologizing for it, because indeed it is, as we keep saying, a very important thing that we, embed gratitude. And I think a lot of our faiths do that implicitly. And it's not bad practice if that could become the new normal for all of society. So thank you again, Stefanie, and Father Nefon, for nominating Stefanie as well. So now, if I may introduce both Ashwin Mehta and Yogesh Rayani, who are from One Jain. They were nominated by Nimur Chandaria, and I believe, Ashwin, you'll be able to make some remarks on behalf of both yourself and Yogesh. Over to you.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much, Maurice and Faith United, for organising this programme. So I'm representing One Jain, and it's a body that kind of as an umbrella body representing the 30 or so Jain organisations across the UK as a single voice in different matters of community, interfaith, government, things like that. So personally, I'm a trustee of the Srimad Bhagavatam Mission Dharampur UK, which is a member of One Jain. And I think what I really wanted to try and touch on today is in terms of the sort of selflessness and bravery of a lot of our frontline workers and key workers that are out there. So we started a gratitude project called Support Our Superheroes. And essentially this was to say thank you to the key workers who are out there risking their lives while we were safe at home. So if I tell you a little bit about that, this kind of gives an overview a little bit on that. Is that for the last 3 months, so every week, we've been out on the streets visiting different sectors of key workers, giving out gratitude packs, which have some snacks and goodies and things like that. But it also has handwritten gratitude cards, personally written by neighbours, children, schools, people like that. We visited over 800 different places so far, having delivered over 1,000 gratitude packs, which has touched over 10,000 lives of key workers. So not only doctors and nurses, where we actually start in the hospitals. I think we've done nearly 20 hospitals across London, but we visited pharmacies, care home staff, which obviously were very much affected by the pandemic, supermarket, convenience store staff, public transport staff in train stations, bus stations, emergency staff, so fire stations, ambulance services, police stations across the capital as well. And importantly, council staff and delivery workers who are actually, we would all be ordering things, so you all know delivery workers are out there doing those kind of things. So the common thing I wanted to share was when we actually turned up and gave a gratitude pack to these incredible people, there was a very kind of a common reaction that would happen. Initially, there was a bit of confusion and then surprise, like, oh, sorry, this is for me, why are you asking for a donation? So that was really kind of a touching aspect to it. That was then followed by complete humility, where, as we've heard from many of our people here who are on the P line, saying that I'm no superhero, I'm just doing my job. But we all know that it's more than that for us sitting at home. And then the third thing which happened, which is really, really lovely, is that at that point, then the emotion kicked in. And often they were in tears. So, we had a lot of touching stories. So, for example, especially reading the cards, there was a supermarket lady who, she was, absolutely aching because she'd been spent the entire morning stacking up all the shelves. And all she had were people coming in shouting at her, saying, why do you not have a stock? Why is this shelf empty? And the fact that someone had just come to her and said, here's a box for you of goodies with some thank you cards. And she was in absolute tears, saying that was the nicest thing that's happened to her in weeks. So a little thank you. We had an old postman who was absolutely exhausted, because you can imagine for the postal workers now, every day is like Christmas Day with the online shopping that's happening. Everyone is doing everything online. So he's absolutely exhausted, but he has to keep on working. There was a pharmacist who's been working for 15 years in one of the high street chemists, and it was the penultimate day. No one was there to say, have a little party or anything like that. And the fact that someone turned up out of the blue, we didn't know. She thought it was a sign from somewhere that someone had just come to say thank you. So really, I think, the bravery, the humility of all of these frontline key workers is incredible. And to kind of finish off the project, we've started an online, a social media campaign on Instagram called The Great Wall of Gratitude, where anyone on Instagram can post up a picture to say thank you to a key worker or a sector, available to everyone, because not everyone can write cards or do things like that. So, yeah, and we were featured luckily on the BBC as well. So that was a nice thing for the project. So that's a quick overview of the Support Our Superheroes gratitude project. And we thought we'd see if we can try and make a small difference in the lives of these wonderful key workers that we see out here, most of whom, I have to be honest and say, we have taken for granted up until now. So thank you very much. That's a brief overview.
Thank you, Ashwin. And I believe, Yogesh, did you want to add some words to those of Ashwin?
Yogesh, why you have to unmute yourself?
Apologies. My name is Yogesh Rayani. I'm a member of the One Jain and also president of Myer Foundation. We have got a temple on Kenton Road. There were two things that worried us in the beginning of the crisis. One was how we can keep our community together. They don't lose hope in belief. And also they knew that there was help around the corner. The other thing was food banks. No one was looking after the food banks. Up till now, all the food banks were serviced by supermarkets, and they used to get their items from supermarkets. But since the shelves in the supermarkets were empty, they were struggling, and they had a huge clientele which had to be satisfied. So what we started doing is, first of all, we started putting in some of these spiritual discourses on YouTube and Zoom. So our community knew that we are around there to support them, and also that there is faith, have faith, everything will turn out good. And then we started, every week we are visiting the Hero Food Bank and supplying them with the essential items which they are struggling to accumulate. And so far we have, one second. So far we have provided them with 1,000 cartons of fruit juices, 200 kilos of rice, 300 kilos of sugar, tomato ketchup, and some of the toiletries which they are finding difficult to procure from anywhere. And on top of it, we had a call from Hartford University students. There are some students who are struggling because they don't have any cash coming in, nor do they have any funds to support themselves. So we provided them with food packs, where there'll be about half a dozen essential items like rice, sugar, flour, cooking oil, and bag. The whole thing was quite easy to procure, but the whole beauty behind all of this was the look of their faces. When we supplied to food bank, they were surprised that there is someone looking after them. And when we looked after the students, they thought that they were going to struggle forever, but they knew that there is someone there. So I think overall, it has been proving that there is always support for everyone.
That's amazing, Yogesh. Thank you so much. I really appreciate your comments as well. To both, congratulations to both you and to Ashwin for your fantastic work, and for Nemu for nominating you. If I may turn now to Amaro Ajahn, who's from the Buddhist tradition, and in fact I should mention gratitude to both Father Nefon and to Karyasam. They inspired me, and this is the whole point about Faith United, is that we are good to inspire one another, to change my background so that I too should fly the flag as you have been doing so effectively. So that wasn't, so thank you both for doing so as an inspiration to myself. May I turn to Amaro, who introduced Dr. Randula, whose work on health. Amaro, over to you.
Thank you very much, Maurice, for once again bringing this together. A very inspiring and beautiful, helpful event. Yeah, I'd like to nominate Dr. Randula Hatatoa because she moved down from the Midlands to be near to our monastery in Hertfordshire. I'm speaking from Amaravati, just north of Hemel Hempstead, Amaravati Monastery. And she's been a very dedicated member of a general practice in Tring. She's a GP, and during the pandemic, she's been looking after many patients in the local community, also part of the regional COVID-19 assessment hub, and been also teaching her fellow GPs meditation so that the mental health and well-being of her say collaborators on the medical team. Also, she's been helping to look after the welfare of the doctors team. She's also been extremely proactive and helpful in informing our monastery to have helpful, skillful standards of say health protection for the pandemic. And so we're personally very, very grateful for everything she's contributed to our community. And so without further ado, I'd like to hand things over to Dr. Randula, and I'm very glad that she agreed to participate this evening.
Thank you. Thank you for that amazing, that very humbling introduction. Yeah, so I'm a GP. I work in Hertfordshire in a general practice. So I think the first time we got wave of the coronavirus was quite early on, before the lockdown started, and when the definition of coronavirus was you had to have traveled abroad. And so we were seeing all these patients without any protection and treating them as a normal chest infection, when a few weeks down the line they said, oh no, this is COVID. So my first patient was actually in a care home a few weeks before the lockdown started, and he was discharged from a hospital, but he was very, very unwell, had a high fever, in lots of distress. But of course, he didn't meet the definition of coronavirus then. So we were in this really tricky situation in the care home, as they said in the news, because public health was saying, no, this is not coronavirus. But in your heart, you knew, no, this sounds a lot like coronavirus. And so with the care managers, we decided, no, this is definitely coronavirus. We can't keep him in the care home. We don't have the facilities to, we didn't have PPE. I was assessing him without, I just had a pair of gloves. So we said, we need to admit this patient. And so we admitted the patient. And then sadly, a few other patients, obviously he was there for about 12 hours in the care home. A few other residents also got the coronavirus and sadly passed away. But so that was my most challenging, I would say, of all the roles I've had during this pandemic, was trying to get care for the care home, because we can't get oxygen very easily, because these patients deteriorate very quickly, and they're in so much distress when they're almost like, I felt like they were fish out of water, gasping. So you can't get oxygen so quickly, and if you knew, oh, they're very frail elderly, they won't survive hospital treatment, you need to give them a lot of sedatives, a lot of morphine to calm them down. And then you can't get access to those drugs very quickly. It takes at least half a day to get the prescription, get it to the chemist, and get the district nurses in. So I spent a lot of time trying to organize a pathway and try to get access to these things, but we still have, we still haven't. What we have so far is PPE, but we still haven't got the medicines and trained enough nurses to look after them. So that was my greatest challenge. I mean, at the moment now we are looking after people post-COVID who have all the sort of symptoms post-COVID, the fatigue and mental distress afterwards, that we're looking after. But at the same time, we've had so much support from our own community within, say, our area. Where I work is in Tring. At the school has provided us with PPE. Our own patients have started sewing us clothes and giving it to us. And everyone that phones us, you spend half the consultation listening to their gratitude of how grateful they are. So it's in that way, it's been really, really inspiring as well. Despite the tragedy, you see all this human goodness and kindness coming out.
You have done amazing work in very challenging circumstances, and for that we also add our thanks to all of those of your patients, and to you and to Amaro for making that introduction as well. Now we will turn, if I may, to Trupti Patel. Besides, after you, Trupti, we have Hitesh. You're going to introduce Hitesh Kukadia for her charitable work, and we then have another 4 speakers. So may I just ask for the next few speakers just to keep the comments to a couple of minutes, just so that we're able to then allow Laura to make some closing remarks at about 6:45 in about 14 minutes. So over to you, Trupti, to introduce Hitesh. Thank you.
Yes, namaste everyone. Hello, I'm Trupti Patel and I'm president of Hindu Forum of Britain, which is the largest umbrella body with over 400 Hindu organizations across the country, including Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales. And in this pandemic, our chosen charity is the Seva International, and they are working with 27 chapters across the country with everyone, with the resilient teams and everyone else. During this work, time to time, we encourage the temples to go and have all sorts of help that is needed in the community. And the reason I have nominated Hitesh here is I've known Hitesh for a very long time. He's from grassroots, from being a volunteer from very early age at the temple. He's worked his way up to become a president or the president of the Ram Mandir in Birmingham. And you can imagine running a temple in itself is a big job. And during the COVID-19 situation is even more sort of like stressful job. Although he's got lots of help from family, friends, and the devotees in the temple, they made sure that nobody around the temple sleeps hungry. And it'll be nice to hear from him really the work that they've been doing. It's amazing work that they're doing, considering that it's a very small temple in Birmingham. And they had to face lots of hate crimes and other things as well during sort of this difficult time. So he's done a fantastic job, and over to you, Hitesh.
Thank you, Trupti Ben. Where do I start? Okay, first of all, I just want to congratulate everyone who's been doing all the lovely work around the country. There's lots of people doing lots and lots of lovely, lovely stuff. I will just concentrate on just the stuff which we're doing at Sri Ram Mandir in Birmingham. And as Trupti Ben says, I'm the president, but I'm also ably assisted by our secretary, who's Joshua Pankania. And to be honest, I have a very, very good volunteer team. Without the volunteer team, none of this is possible at all. I can try and arrange things, but if I don't have a cook, if I don't have delivery drivers, I have nothing. So my thanks, first of all, go to all the volunteers. That's the main thing. So what are we doing? We're delivering what we call tiffins, which is basically takeaway meals. Yeah? We are delivering hot, cooked meals to the door, and there was a specific need for this. The Gujarati Hindu community in Birmingham generally just, fends for itself. It's quiet. It just sits around in the background doing its stuff. Yeah, it doesn't make too much noise. But one thing which we realized as a temple is on March 23rd, when the complete lockdown came, all these people used to go to the various temples, the gurudwaras, and the day centers around Birmingham, and they had nowhere to go. They relied on these places for their food. And not only were they relying on these places for one of their main meals of the day, they were also in isolation, which meant family couldn't visit them to deliver food to them. So there was a huge, huge need. And since the start of April, we've been working with a team of about 20 people roughly, and 6 delivery teams to deliver hot, cooked vegetarian food to the elderly. Now we have a very specific dietary requirement, obviously, with our devotees, which is vegetarian food. And some sects of Hinduism don't eat onions and garlic. So we made all our food without onions and garlic in it. Now there are other organizations in Birmingham who are delivering food parcels. But again, our core people we were serving are the elderly who wanted a hot cooked, basically a curry, rice, chapati meal, which wasn't being provided by anybody else except our temple in Birmingham. And since April, we've delivered around about 2,200 meals. And, you know, the feedback from the public, from those who have had the service has been phenomenal. To be honest, if you heard some of the phone calls I've had, it would make you cry, to be honest. It's amazing how many lonely people there are. Yeah. I'll cut it short there because I know time is running short.
I was just going to say, if you don't mind, just because we want to allow the others a chance. But thank you so much, Hitesh and Tripti as well. Very kind of you. And if I may, I will introduce directly myself, although Mindip Singh, who is from the Sikh community, has nominated Pavan Kaur. Pavan, would you like to make some remarks about the work that you've done in the health sector? Thank you.
Hi, I'm Pavan Kaur. I'm a locum pharmacist. I'm based in Hertfordshire. I work alongside Mandeep Singh in Gurdwara Aid, which I'll explain a little bit about a bit later. It's been a really scary time. We've got a virus out there that we know very little about, and that's obviously caused so much uncertainty. And being a community pharmacist, we've had to reassure our patients, our customers. We've had to try and reinforce the government guidelines as best we can, and it's been a really challenging time for everyone. But obviously, I'll specifically talk about being a community pharmacist and how it's been for us. We've had to change the way in which we work. We've had to, at most pharmacies that I've worked at, we've not actually allowed anyone into the pharmacy. We've kept them all outside. A lot of pharmacists actually painted 2-meter lines outside. To protect ourselves and to protect them, but that has often caused quite a lot of uproar amongst customers and our patients because it's increased waiting times. And the sort of the most common issue that we face as pharmacists in normal day-to-day life is problems with attaining certain medicines. And obviously at a time like this, that is really heightened, and it causes even more backlash for us as pharmacists. It's made it really hard for people that regularly pop into the pharmacy. A community pharmacy is often the first port of call for a lot of people. We get a lot of elderly people that just pop in to have a general chit chat, speak to us, and they haven't been able to do that. And I think that has also caused a lot of people's health to deteriorate, and it's had a really big psychological impact. Our phones have been busier. We haven't been able to deal with minor ailments as you know in the normal sort of way. We've had to use our NHS email to allow people to send us pictures of you know, rashes if they've had an injury, that type of thing. We've had to deal with it like that, which is obviously really bizarre, but that's how we've had to get used to things. And I think the hardest thing that we faced is, I think, one, being staff shortages, which is a really common thing in pharmacy anyway, but even more so now because, you know, we've got staff that have to be at home with their children, we've got staff that have had to self-isolate. And I think the other thing is seeing those that live alone having to fend for themselves even more now. And I think, you know, that's a really difficult thing to have to see, especially when you have your own grandparents. I have 2 grandparents. They, you know, they're still going. They live together. They've got each other. But those that are just completely on their own, I think that's been something that's been really hard to sort of digest and deal with. But I think one of the pros, if there are any, is us as a pharmacy team working together. I feel as though all of the shops that I've been to, all the pharmacies I've been to, the team dynamics have been stronger, and there's been more of a bond because we're all sharing something in common now. So yeah, it's been a really challenging time, but you have to do what you can, like we all are here. So yeah.
Well, wonderful, Pavan. Thank you very much. And Achron Khaviv, may I turn lastly to Yoni Birnbaum, and who's nominated Linda Myer in respect to education. Yoni, over to you.
Thank you so much, Maurice. It's a real privilege and pleasure both to be involved with such an esteemed group of people who have done such incredible work over the past few months, and particularly to introduce Linda. Linda and I have been associated with my community for many years, and Linda is really a shining example of an aspect of the pandemic, which I hope will get more and more recognition as children begin increasingly to go back to school. Linda has been a key worker, key teacher in primary school, working with children of frontline workers, and demonstrating an incredible ability to transition from the normal school environment to the virtual environment, as well as maintaining that environment in school for those key workers, children of key workers. And it really, I think, you know, she has demonstrated tremendous, really heroic efforts in ensuring that critical education is kept going for those children, and also ensuring that an example is set for those being able to come back to school, that will happen, life will continue, we will get back to normal school life, and our children, please God, will thrive in the future. And Linda, just hand over to you. Thank you.
Hi, thanks so much, Rabayoni. So yes, I am indeed a primary school teacher, and I work at Wolfson Hillel Primary School, which is a Jewish school, which is part of an academy of another 5 Jewish schools called the JCAT, the Jewish Academy Trust. And at the start of quarantine, all the 5 schools of the Jewish Academy Trust amalgamated, and all the children from those schools who were key worker children would come to a central school, which was Wolfson Hillel in Southgate, and that's where that's where the provision took place. I was stationed at Wolfson Hillel, and I took part in the provision. I wasn't there for the entire lockdown. I was there for sort of a week in, a week out. And it was quite, I felt honoured to be a facilitating key worker to enable a lot of our children's parents to work. A huge proportion of our key workers were children of doctors, midwives, nurses. We had a lot of them, and it was a real honour to provide them with as much education as we could in a really different environment. Obviously, they're used to a school full of 500 children, and during the lockdown period, for the key worker provision, there was only really around sort of 30 to 60 children in school, and obviously year groups were all mixed up, and teachers from all schools were called in to kind of help with the provision. There was a real focus on well-being, and also a lot of outdoor time and a lot of fun. We tried to kind of make it really good for them, because it was really hard. They weren't in their usual environment. They weren't at home like a lot of their friends. So yeah, that was the key worker provision was a real honour. I think it got particularly challenging where schools opened on the 1st of June. What I will say is that it was a real logistical nightmare, having to think of a way to get all these children back in school and adhere to government guidelines of only having bubbles of 15, and the social distancings of like drop-offs and pick-up. So there have been endless rotas that teachers have had to do. There's a rota for children going to break, and there's a rota for children going to lunch, and there's crossed off zones in the playground, and obviously drop off and pick up, there's graduated. So in our school particularly, people with the surname A to E come at 8:10. People with the surname L to M come at 8:30. And that's the kind of logistical thing you had to go through in our school. Obviously, it's amazing to welcome the children back. But the logistics of it were really hard, and also we're operating on a skeleton staff because a lot of staff are shielding, etc. So we've really had to make do. But like Pavan said, it really has brought our team closer. We've all had to roll our sleeves up and actually just roll with the punches and do our best. And it's been a real honour. It's nice to have the children back at school, and they've also been so happy to be back. Because the home learning that we provided, we did our very best, but families reported that it was a real struggle to get their children down to work. So we really did our best. But it's been a pleasure to come back, and it's also been an honour to work in the provision and facilitate key workers. And as a lot of teachers will tell you, that we're sort of really desperate for things to go back to the way they were.
Thank you so much, Linda, and of course, Yoni, for nominating the really inspiring stories. If I may turn straight to Laura, who, as someone who's been a real leader in establishing long-term impactful change, showing the importance of communities supporting one another through the work that she's been doing, the volunteering that she has engendered throughout faith communities, not just through Mitzvah Day, but with Nisan Hashim, and bringing and encouraging and empowering by leading and inspiring women in her community to take leadership positions as well in all levels. So Laura, if I may turn to you for your remarks. If you can unmute yourself. Thank you.
So first of all, thank you. I need to tell you a little story because in 1948, the day that the National Health Service was established, my father graduated as a doctor. And my father is now 95, still completely compos mentis, got an opinion on everything, including the NHS and the coronavirus. Got plenty to tell us all about everything. And so I can't attend an event about the NHS, particularly the birthday of the NHS, without thinking about him who personifies for me that 72 years of service of the NHS. And so it's such a treat and an honor to be with all of you, so many of you who are part of that great institution, which has gone through its changes over the years, but still is something that we are all incredibly proud of and incredibly lucky to have in our country. So I want to start off with saying thank you for that. And I know my father would say the same if we gave him a chance to have a word in Edgeways, which he would. And I was listening to all of your stories and just picked up a few themes, and I've really picked up on all of the positives. So yes, it's been a pandemic, and yes, it's been awful, and the outcomes and the awfulness is yet to be seen, I think, in many ways, but so many positives that you all brought up. For example, the input of the minorities and the immigrants, the reaching out to vulnerable children in innovative ways. I wish my teacher taught me maths on Zoom. I mean, what a fantastic idea. Dealing with fear and bravery and people's emotions, and people managing to cope was a phrase somebody used. People helping each other out all the time, gratitude projects, supporting our heroes. These were the words you were all using, gratitude packs. Another thing that really struck me as you talked was about the breadth of the people involved. Not just doctors, nurses, people in hospitals, but we've heard about people in shops, pharmacists, police, care homes, key workers, teachers, all sorts of people, all part of this cross-community effort to get our country back and to get us back to a place of safety. Practical help, not just theoretical help. People have been doing things on the ground that matter. And another thing that really struck me that you talked about was recognizing difference. You know, it's okay to deliver meals, but some people want a particular type of curry because that's what they're used to. You know, we're not all the same. We don't all have the same needs. We have to recognize our similarities, but also our differences. And I thought hearing about that in this diverse group of people who recognize the similar themes, but also the differences that individuals have and need was so empowering. The importance of volunteers and volunteer teams and how the volunteers need to be looked after. Because somebody said, you know, if you turn up and there's no volunteers, you're going nowhere, right? So it's all very well to have volunteers, but if we don't look after them and we don't cherish them and we don't thank them and nurture them, they're not going to be there for very long and they're not going to be useful. I just want to comment just finally on a couple of things that a couple of people said. So, I think it was Linda at the end who talked about the honor that it was to be involved. And I really got that sense from all of you about how you haven't just taken this for granted. You've actually felt honored to be involved in this. And that's really humbling, that you don't just expect thanks. You're here because you felt that you gave something back and you were honored to have done that. And that was really wonderful to hear. And I wanted to end on something that Yogesh said. He said the students knew someone was there. And how wonderful was that to hear? In this pandemic, people needed to know someone was there for them. We talk about acts of kindness, good deeds. We talk about Seva. We talk about Sadaka, we talk about all sorts of different ways. In Judaism, we talk about mitzvah, and we know that each of these little acts matters. Each of these little acts of kindness matters. And to hear all of your stories just was absolutely inspirational and made me realize that we are all in it together. We are all united. And thank you so much for all of the great work that everyone's doing.
Thank you so much, Laura, for your wonderful, generous words, and of course, for all the amazing work that you
and thank you, Maurice, for pulling it all together. Really so lovely to be with this group of wonderful people.
It's the people who do the work that need the gratitude, and they are elsewhere on this call. And to all of you, I repeat my thanks. There have been some questions that have been posted. We do have 9 minutes left if those of you that wish to remain can do so on the panel. So if you can look at the Q&A, but I'll just pick one first, if I may, where we've been asked, and if those of you who wish to respond, just put your hand up. The comment was that you've all demonstrated extraordinary resilience during the pandemic. And what advice do you have for dealing with the mental health challenges of COVID? Who would like to respond to that? Debbie, please unmute yourself. Could you turn off your video stream just so that we get a clearer sound? Sorry, that's not, obviously she's frozen. Would somebody else like to deal with that? Yes, Amaro, please go ahead.
Thank you. So during this time, since we're a monastery is a contemplative community, so meditation is a large part of our life. And in the customary routine of things, we would have a weekly meditation class every Saturday. So when the lockdown came, we immediately began to look into ways of doing that online. And so we've been providing that also on every Sunday afternoon. We have a question and answer session. People can send in questions and trying to respond. A lot of the questions revolve around issues that have come up during the COVID-19 pandemic. Others are more general, say, to life and the universe and everything. But in particular, dealing with things like fear, also the issues coming up with frustration and difficulty of being in a contained situation with one's loved ones. So it can be more challenging to love when you can't leave the building. And so that a lot of meditation guidance, a lot of, provision of, tools in order to work with the mind, not just in terms of the internal meditative work, but also how to speak skillfully with each other, how to ask for forgiveness if you have blown up and you've lost it, or that people are feeling very, impatient and having difficulties with containing their energies. That the processes of apologizing, asking for forgiveness, beginning again, all those things have been very, very useful, and people have expressed a lot of appreciation for having those tools made more available.
Thank you very much for that. Does anybody else want to make a comment? We'll take just one final question. Trupti, we're going to come to you in a second because I know you wanted to respond to another question. Does anybody want to talk specifically about the mental health issues? Well, perhaps we should just go. Yes, Dr. Randula, please unmute yourself.
Yeah, so we've working as a GP, we come across it quite a lot. And like Ajahn Amaro was saying, even our healthcare staff were under a lot of mental stress. So we did do meditation in the GP practice as well, but there are also other tools that people can use, like we're doing today. Thinking of what you are grateful for, what you forget, that what you take for granted. Some people the fact that you can see, you can speak in itself, you should be grateful for. And then cultivating gratitude is a good way to feel joy. And also doing something to help, give in return. Like people always say, oh, I feel so helpless. You're doing all this, but what can I do? So the things that they can do to help the society can also help with your mental health, and not like with mindfulness techniques is quite available now. Is not to get caught up in your thoughts and emotions, but to be able to be with them and observe them, and to almost let them be like the waves of the ocean passing away and not identifying with them, and then you're left with that inner peace rather than being the storm itself.
That's very good advice. Thank you. And Mandip, did you want to comment on that or on our final question?
I was just going to say thank you, Maurice. Mental health has obviously been a very big thing, because as humans, we are not very good at living alone. We like to seek companionship, friendship, and company. So it's been sad to see that. What we've actually seen impact in the mental health world itself, where mental health patients themselves are not getting that one-to-one care anymore, because the care has been transferred to being over the phone, and that's led to a rise in deaths and unfortunately that we've actually seen ourselves. But these are the kind of sad impacts of COVID-related impact on people at this point in time. That was the kind of thing I just wanted to highlight.
Thank you, Mandip. And so the final question, which Trupti would like to respond to, and we're open to everybody, is how did your faith help you support patients who were alone and very unwell? And we've only got a couple of minutes left, so Trupti will make some remark, and then if somebody else would like to respond to that, by all means. I mean, obviously this is patient related, but Trupti, over to you.
Sure. Before we go into the faith, on the NHS side, as there are considerable numbers of doctors from the Hindu faith and from the Jain faith, what is being done was many hospitals had, like Dr. Randula said, they ran sort of well-being classes, some yoga classes were offered, some meditation were offered to, particularly to doctors and nurses, along with providing the PPE. So that was quite amazing work, and I can quote in the Northwest with the Greater Manchester area and Liverpool area, amazing amount of work was done by them. How does faith help? Well, we had huge problem with the bereavement, and probably with the difficult situation of cremation and not being able to accompany your loved one and give them a proper send-off when only 5 family members can attend, and then you end up being on the Zoom meeting while the whole process is going on, and you feel like, am I being sort of detached from what is going on, or am I being part of it? And how do you console people? So we had considerable numbers of queries, people asking us, phoning, and across the country, the temples reacted pretty good, because what happened was that there were people assigned to do specific jobs. And mainly, like I said, we are lucky that we have numbers of doctors in the community, in all over the UK, in various, taking voluntary work in various temples. So we were so lucky in that respect, and they've taken over helping people with the mental health and helping people with the bereavement. So yes, in a true sense, because your faith teaches you that if something happens inevitable and your soul moves on when the body goes, then how you encompass what's happening with the COVID-19 situation and move forward. And I'm really, really grateful for all the volunteers who worked hard on that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And I'm afraid we've now hit the hour, so we won't have time for more responses. Debbie, we did capture yours, even though you weren't able to put it across the broadband. We did on the chat. So thank you for your response to that. And again, thank you to everybody for all of your amazing work, both here within Face United and nominating people from the various communities. It has been inspirational to hear this. The recording will be made available. There are people who wanted to join and participate and not do it just at this hour. So that's the advantage of having this kind of technology available to us. We have to be grateful for that, and for the fact that for the most part we've heard everybody, and we are very, very thankful indeed for all of your good work. And if I may just in the last comment say that we've got a big anniversary of the NHS coming up in a few days' time, as some of us know. This isn't just about doctors, as we've heard on this call. It cuts across so many different fields, whether it's in education or in even in businesses and not just, of course, the faith communities who are very well represented here, but just throughout the country, we have heard and seen the most inspiring stories. They have not always been perfect. There is a lot of bad out there. We know that, but we need to hold on to what's good and have that as an exemplar to people so that they are inspired. And you are the people who have done that for ourselves and for many others who will watch this recording and will retweet the words that have been inspiring us this evening on this call. So once more, thank you all very much and wish you well and continued strength and encouragement for all the fantastic work that you do. Good evening.
Thank you. Maurice, could I just say a quick word? I mean, we've finished the recording, but I just want to say, because we've got quite a few of the doctors from the NHS here, that, my heart and thanks go out to all of them, because they've actually played the role of families. When we talk about people being alone in the hospitals, we've got instances of, appeals for iPads and phones where the nurses and doctors personally have used their phones to sit beside these patients into the late hours just so their families can talk or see their loved ones. And so, huge amount of appreciation to the NHS staff who are here on this call as well. And I think it's probably the most you could ever give to a family who have had their loved ones in the hospital and who haven't come back, to have given them that chance for the last few seconds to have spoken to them. So thank you very much to all of those people.
Thank you all for those last words. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time and all the best. Bye-bye.